Welcome into the show, everyone. I'm your host, the Unhinged Father. This is the Unhinged Father podcast. Hope everyone's having a fantastic week so far. Happy 4th of July to everyone out there. Hope you're listening to this with a hot dog in one hand, a little American flag in the other. Got a good episode planned for you today. I think it's an important message, especially on this 4th of July holiday. So let's go ahead and jump on into the episode. But first, a little public service announcement for everyone out there. If you are one of the people that shoots off illegal fireworks into the wee hours of the morning, I seriously dislike you, and you should go kick rocks. Now that we've gotten past that public service announcement, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. So today, something that I wanted to talk about is what it means to me to be proud to be an American, because I am proud to be an American. I've lived here my entire life. There are things about this country that I absolutely love, but that meaning has changed for me over the course of my life. And I think that it's going to continue to evolve as I continue to live my life. Things change. I became a dad, got married. There are a lot of things that have changed for me in the short 36 years that I've been on this planet. Let's dive in a little bit deeper. And hopefully everyone can follow along. I know that I'm quote unquote neurodivergent and I like to jump from thing to thing, but I'm going to try and keep this as coherent as possible. Hopefully everyone understands. It's been difficult for me to record this on the eve before 4th of July, just because there are so many different ideas pulsing through my head, and I don't want to necessarily have this be a controversial episode. Although there's only like 6 of you listening, my intent is not to polarize people within this episode. It's more so to acknowledge different ideas that are going on with my head, acknowledge where we're at as America, and hopefully end with a little bit of a positive note. I'm just going to acknowledge that a lot of this episode is probably going to sound pretty negative, especially on the front end, but that's just because these are the things that have caused me to change my perspective on what it means to be proud to be an American. So bear with me. I appreciate you listening. So let's start at the beginning. I was born December. No, I'm just kidding. When I was younger, I was brought up to believe that America is the best country in the world, that we were better than all the rest. No one else had it as good as we did. Back-to-back World War champions. We had beer, hot dogs, football, bikinis. Get the fuck out of here. You can't compete with America. And me as a child, I had this unwavering belief in America's supremacy, that we were the best nation in the world. And I still, to an extent, believe that the United States is a top nation in the world. But I think that I've been able to kind of brush off some of the glamour that was thrown on top of that and really kind of dive in deeper, especially as I've gotten older. I'd say now I have a much healthier skepticism of our government, of the things that I'm being told, and I question a lot more deeply than I did when I was a child, which is completely understandable. I'm not a child anymore. I still hold true to the ideas of the United States of America and what it stands for. I'm still proud to live in this country, and I'll continue to fight to make it the best that I possibly can. And that's really what this episode is geared towards, is we can't change what's happened in the past, but we can make a concerted effort to try and make sure that this country that we love so much, that I love so much, is the best that it could possibly be. And yeah, as I just mentioned, I've gotten older, I've gotten smarter, I've gotten more pessimistic about certain things. I don't see the country the same as I used to see it when I was a kid. I don't see it through those rose-colored glasses anymore as just fireworks, hot dogs, America, the Sandlot 4th of July scene. That's not necessarily what America is to me anymore. I've gained more awareness, and my perception of America has definitely changed as well. And it's hard not to. You might ask, why have you changed your perception on what it is to be in America, what America is? Well, I've got fucking eyes. I can see. I'm not stupid. Just turn on social media, the news. You can see all of the craziness going on. You can see how polarized this country is and just the sheer amount of insanity that's out there. You've got people on these extreme polar opposites within the political spectrum, the ideological spectrum, and then you've got people like me, normal people that are right there in the middle. And the thing that scares me the most is the fact that you don't see the people in the middle. You never hear about the people in the middle. You don't see the normal people. And I think it's because instead of being the courageous Americans that I used to believe us to be, the people in the middle, the normal people with differing opinions, but relatively rational opinions, these people live in a state of fear. And they let that fear consume them and they stay quiet because they're afraid of cancellation. They're afraid of getting fired. They're afraid of retribution from friends, family, all of these things. There's just so much fear that it's really disheartening to someone like me because I feel like I'm fucking alone or I'm taking crazy pills. So you may ask, why has your definition of what it means to be proud to be an American changed? Well, I've got eyes. That's my answer. And if you can't sit back and look at the manipulation that's going on, the fear-mongering that's going on, well then this is going to be a harder episode to listen to than I initially thought. And besides all of the manipulation, the craziness, the polarization, everything else that's going on, another thing that has really changed my perspective of being proud to be an American, of what it means to be an American and how I feel about my country, would just be the fact that I have a family now. I have kids. I have a wife. The stakes are so much higher than they used to be when I was a child. When you're a child, when I was a kid, the worst thing that could potentially happen being a patriot was we could get into a war. I could potentially be drafted, sent off to war, and potentially fight and die in a war for my country. That all had to do with me. But now as a father, it scares the absolute shit out of me to see the different things that we fight for, the different wars that we get into, the manipulation, the political maneuvering that goes on with the United States, and to think that someday we may end up in a conflict and that my two boys could potentially be drafted into a war, and I don't even want to throw it in the fucking air, but just could be drafted, could fight, and I could lose them for something that we don't believe in, for a war that's not just, for something that doesn't align with our ideology, with our core values. That idea alone scares the shit out of me right there. But I also think that there's just, there's a hierarchy. And when I was a kid, you had these different hierarchies. I played football and, they would say like God, football, family, stuff like that. But now in my adult life, it really goes family. My family is above my nation, at least in my hierarchy of things. I care more about my family than I do about the nation. And maybe that's hypocritical or selfish, or I don't know what the fuck you want to call it for me to say. Maybe that's not what people would be like, no, you should care more about your country. It's more about the collective. I'm selfish. I am selfish. I love my kids. I love my family. And I'll do things for other people, but I can't in good faith tell you that if there was a conflict to break out, my kids were of age, and I believed that conflict to be not just to be something that I don't believe in, I couldn't fathom sending my boys off. And these are all hard things for me to come to grips with. I'm having a hard time really explaining, what I feel on this, because as a kid, you grow up almost romanticizing war. And we as Americans, we really do romanticize war. You got the Wild Wild West, cowboys, and then World War II, some of the best action movies ever made. Band of Brothers, Saving Private Ryan, even some of the stuff from Vietnam. We romanticize all of these things about war and the honor and the glory that comes with it and the pride you have in standing for your country and fighting for it. But at the end of the day, I think I've lost some of that romantic image because of the love I have for my own kids and just the thought of sending people off to die in a war. It's a terrible thing to think about. That being said, war is sometimes a necessary thing, but that romanticized version that I used to see when I was younger, when I had those rose-colored glasses on, that's gone. War is evil. War is ugly. War is devastating. It's not something that I would actively encourage people to get into. It's not something that I strive for. And like I said, I know that sometimes that it is a necessary evil, but I really just dislike that romanticized version of it, especially when it comes to like real life. And I think some of that fear comes from the fact of the current state of our nation. I've made the comparison before in the past that I think sometimes our current government and national media, it really reminds me of the book Animal Farm, where they're just trying to shove stuff down our throats so much until we just accept it, till we're too afraid to fight back or question. I'm very skeptical and very distrusting of our current political landscape and our current media landscape. I do think that there's a lot of manipulation going on, and I'm not sitting here putting on my, tinfoil hat and just saying like, oh, they're all trying to kill us with the vaccine or whatever fucking weird ass conspiracy theories are out there. But I do think that fundamentally there's a lot of manipulation going on. Why wouldn't there be? People are in power. People don't want to give up that power. People have gone into government. They've gotten rich. They're in power. Things have gone the way that they want them to. Why would they give that up? Why wouldn't they try to push the envelope as far as they possibly could? It's just human nature. And a great example of this is this upcoming election, right? We've got what none of us ever asked for. We've got Trump versus Biden. And I'm not going to get into the specific politics on this. Not my intent for this to be a specifically political episode, whether or not I'm drinking the right Kool-Aid or I'm drinking the left Kool-Aid. Like I said before, I fall in the middle on a lot of things. And I think both sides would probably be pissed off at a lot of the things that I say. All that being said, I don't know how you could look at all of the events that have gone down recently and not think that there's a manipulation going on, that people are trying to tell me things that my eyes won't believe. And I know that AI is going to change everything in the future. But for right now, I know what my eyes are showing me and I know what I see. And if you watch that debate, I don't know how the fuck you can even think that Joe Biden is capable of doing a second term in office. That was absolutely brutal to watch. And I don't think that either candidate was the top candidate for this nation. But that's just really, like I said, there's this corruption. This government has been built brick by brick, year over year, and it's become this huge bureaucratic machine that just, we're going to stay on the status quo as long as we possibly can. People that are within the system are going to get rich. They're going to have power. Why not just continue down this? And we'll just continue to put smoke screens in front of the regular people. I guess if I did have a conspiracy theory, my biggest conspiracy theory would be that the Democrats and the Republicans are literally two sides to the same coin, and that when they're done with the debates and bashing on each other, they just go to like some back room and start drinking together and be like, oh, look at all these fucking idiots out here. But yes, I'm not here to argue the politics or get into how you either think that Biden is the main character of the movie Weekend at Bernie's or how Trump is this vicious felon who threatens the very fabric of our democracy. The only thing I see right now as a threat to our way of life is the amount of manipulation and ideological fervor that has infiltrated our political theater, and it scares the shit out of me. It should scare you too. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. I'm not here to be a downer on your 4th of July. Eat your hot dog, pour out your Bud Light or Coors Light, whatever you're drinking nowadays. But I do take this holiday now in a different light than I used to. I don't find myself standing on the side of those with signs that say Jesus hates gays, and I'm also not standing on the side of those that say that they identify as a fucking horse. As I've mentioned multiple times, I find myself in the middle of a lot of different arguments. I can see the rationale between various arguments, and I consider myself a free thinker, someone who's not going to let fear determine where I go, someone who's not going to let popularity determine where I go. I'm going to think about something and I'm going to make a decision. And my hope is that there's other people that are like that. Not necessarily people in the middle. I guess somewhere in the middle of those two extremes on the political and ideological pole. People who are free thinkers, people who can make decisions on their own, people who will look at things not through rose-colored glasses, but also not through like shit-colored glasses. I know that those people are still out there, even though quite a few of them live in fear and don't necessarily want to be seen. They don't want to go against the grain on any of these issues. At the end of the day, I'm still proud to be an American because I can make an impact on what the definition of an American is. We all have that little sliver of power, and I encourage you to use it to make this place the best place to live on earth. sometimes we think of ourselves as invisible and not really having an impact. If you live in California, you've said multiple times, I'm not even voting because my vote doesn't really matter. It's already been predetermined. But that's really horse shit. At the end of the day, each one of us is an American. Each one of us is contributing to what the definition of being an American is. And I encourage you, make this place the best place to live on earth. Make people want to come to America. Make people proud to be an American. Not just for yourself, but for our children and for our children's children and for generations to come. That's my positive, is that we all can make an impact here. We can all make it to where we're all proud again to be Americans. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. This was a hard one. Like I said, I feel like I'm all over the place when I'm going through and editing this. I'm sure that I'm just going to be like, how the fuck am I going to make this make sense to everyone? No clue how I'm going to have that happen. Anyways, I hope that everyone has a fantastic holiday. As always, if you enjoyed this, enjoy the content, give me a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasting needs met. Feel free to give me a follow on Instagram, X, all the different social medias. There's a link with the link tree. There's also a website. All of it can be found within the description. And yeah, if you think that this is a message that you either agree with, you disagree with, let me know. I want to hear from you. Share it with other people. Let's get the discussion going. Am I completely wrong? Possibly, but I want to hear from you. Other than that, I hope everyone has, like I said, a safe and happy 4th of July. Have a fantastic weekend. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.